Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson. We're continuing our study of the parables in Matthew's Gospel, and we're in chapter 18, looking at the two parables that Jesus uses in the Kingdom Sermon, a sermon that he delivers in response to the question, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Jesus immediately calls a child, and he says, you better be like this. And what he means, he says quite clearly, is to be humble. And we talked yesterday about how David in his Psalms, in Psalm 23, Psalm 131, where he envisions himself, sees himself clearly as a lamb, as a child on his parents' lap who needs to be taken care of and who knows he's the lowest on the totem pole. That is that sensibility that Jesus is talking about. I want to go ahead. The parable is told in chapter 18, verses 12 through 14, but I don't think we can understand Matthew's setting of the parable or Jesus' setting of the parable in Matthew unless we start with verse 7. So let's read verses 7 through 14 of Matthew chapter 18. Woe to the world because of its stumbling blocks. He's just said if you'd cause one of these innocent ones to stumble, it'd be better for you to have a millstone tied around your neck and you thrown into the sea. Woe to the world because of its stumbling blocks. It is inevitable that stumbling blocks come, but woe to the man through whom the stumbling blocks come. Do not be a discouragement or a temptation to anyone else. Woe to you if you are, Jesus says. If your hand or your foot causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it from you. It is better for you to enter life crippled or lame than having 2 hands or 2 feet to be cast into eternal fire. If your eye causes you to stumble, pluck it out and throw it from you. It is better for you to enter life with one eye than having 2 eyes to be cast into hell of fire. See that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I say to you that their angels in heaven continually behold the face of my Father who is in heaven. For the Son of Man came to seek and save that which is lost. Now this verse is not in the oldest Greek manuscripts and may be an interpolation. Jesus does say these very words. These are Jesus's words from Luke chapter 15, connected with the parable of the lost sheep. So it wouldn't be unusual for them to end up here, but they may not be here in the original text. See to it that you do not despise these little ones. Their angels in heaven continually behold the face of my Father who is in heaven. Why do you think if a man has 100 sheep and one of them has gone astray, does he not leave the 99 on the mountains and go search for the one that is straying? And if it turns out that he finds it, truly I say to you, he rejoices over it more than the 99 which have not gone astray. Thus it is not the will of your Father who is in heaven that any one of these little ones should perish. The meaning of the parable turns on the meaning of the phrase little ones. Now, in Luke's gospel, this is clear. It's in a setting that makes the message inescapable, and it is an introductory parable, along with the parable of the lost coin, to the parable of the lost sons, plural, the prodigal son and his brother who was also lost. And it is prompted by people complaining about the fact that Jesus is spending time with sinners and establishing relationship with sinners. And that's why Jesus says, learn this. This parable, is not those who are sick or well who need a physician, but those who are sick. The Son of Man did not come to save the well. The Son of Man came to seek and save those who are lost. And so that's clear. That's why I don't think this verse 11, probably belongs in the text here, because the Matthew setting of this story is different than the setting of it in Luke. And if you're saying, well, they have to be the same, then you don't know how preachers preach. If you get a good story, you use it, and you use it as many times as you can, and in as many ways as you can, because a good story can be used to make various lessons. And that's just the way preachers have always preached. That's the way Jesus preaches. And he's using the story, the example of the lost sheep to tell a little bit of a different tale. Who are the little ones? I'm not sure. Jesus started off with a child, and the child's still there, and he's talking about the little ones. I think he's talking about the little ones. I think he's talking about babes in Christ or children, people who are just learning. And I think he's warning us in the woes. He's warning us to do two things. One is to be very vigilant about being careful, being nurturing, being nourishing to our little ones, whether they are babes or babes in Christ. And do not do anything that discourages them or tempts them or takes them down the wrong path. You treasure them and you grow them up strong. And if you violate that, you will pay the consequences. I think he's making that point as well. But he's also saying to us, whether we're tempted to be tempting or to be discouraging, or whether we are learning to deal with temptations and discouragements to get rid of the things in our lives that are destructive to our faith. And he's repeating what he's already said in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, verse 29. There's a little bit of a different take on it there, a little bit different emphasis on it there. It was more in the context of sexual morality there. Here it's in the context of just general discouragements and stumbling blocks to our faith. But he says, get rid of them. And he says to us, not so much that God is out looking for all sinners, but that God, he is. That's clearly the message being taught in Luke 15. I think it's just a shade different here. I think that he's talking about the little ones, and that the little ones come first, that us grown-ups have to take care of the little ones, whether they be babes or babes in Christ. And I really do think that when we focus our efforts on raising up our children and focus our efforts in strengthening our new Christians, then we are doing what we're supposed to be doing in the kingdom. And if we allow ourselves the luxury of being blowhard adults, chasing our interests down rat holes, and not thinking at all about how our arguments and our disagreements and our hard feelings can be discouraging to our children and to babes in Christ, we'll pay the consequences of that. And I think that's what Jesus is emphasizing when he tells the parable of the lost sheep here. There's going to be a second question that will prompt the longer parable. We'll talk about that next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.